in our basement cold room, and the water started going in through there. So my brother and I, we basically started putting towels, blankets, trying to stop the hole or trying to prevent anything else from getting wet. And my other brother went outside to check on our sandbags, and then we just heard him scream, and everything just started falling down. You couldn't see my street at all. You couldn't even see my front 3 steps. And basically, we tried to take the sandbags and put them up back into the garage, but there was into the garage front door, but there was no use. And then the water eventually started going in the garage, and eventually into the basement. And we saved as much as we could. When we went down, we couldn't see my basement steps. There was like 3 steps that we couldn't see, and the water at that point was, I guess, thigh-high, sort of, above my knee. And then we couldn't do anything, and my neighbor called her husband, and her husband's a cop, and the cops came, they knocked down my fence, and we basically evacuated 3 families through my fence. And basically we then went to a shelter. We spent the night there, and I couldn't sleep at all. And my dogs, they were very scared, so they couldn't. They were one of them was very hyper, the other one was terrified. And at one point when we were in the police ride there, one of my dogs was paddling, so he thought like he was underwater. But once we got there, we were given cots. There wasn't any food, and we were starving, so we didn't have any food with us, and there was a blackout, so we couldn't go anywhere, and nowhere was open. So we just had water, and I brought like extra clothes, and we couldn't even bring the dog food, and they hadn't eaten at all. So we stayed there overnight, and then the next morning everything was kind of destroyed. We went back home, and the water was receded, but you saw the water line, and in my cold room you can see that there was still water left. And at that point everything was gone. My brother's bed set, his mattress was completely soaked, and stuff was out of position, so you can see that it was floating for a while. The couches, his TV stand, his clothes was all gone. They were soaked, and our boiler and our hot water heater was destroyed. And I remember that the day that the hurricane was happening, in the basement, the water was coming out of our toilets and of our faucets and of our shower, because the water was basically, I guess it was too much, so it kept going through our pipes, and it kept going up. And the whole entire time I just grabbed a bucket, and we went from the basement to outside throwing the water and throwing it over again. But there was no use, because eventually it kept overflowing and overflowing. We lost he lost all his belongings, all his appliances, kitchen appliances, and luckily we got to save our washer and dryer. We waited until everything was dried, and then we got it repaired, and it's starting to work. Right now we basically took out all the wood panels of the floors, and we had to take out the tiles. We wiped down the walls, which are wood panels, and we're trying to detect if there's mold there.
So everything's going back to normal? Like, do you feel like how about when you go to school? Like, it must be like normal going back to school.
Yes.
But then when you come back home, do you still feel normal, or do you still feel like impacted, or what do you feel when you come back from school?
The first couple of days, it was kind of very difficult, because at first I didn't have anything. I didn't have electricity. And my mind wasn't my homework or like class at the time. So the first day I went back to school, I kept thinking like what my mom was thinking, like, how are we going to repair all this? How how is my brother Joe Quinn? How's he gonna get all his stuff back? And then when I would go to school, you know, it would be normal. Some people were there, some people weren't, and like my classmates, I'm in a learning community, so we all know each other pretty well, and I felt like I was the only one really impacted by the storm. So it was very difficult because they kept asking me what happened over and over again. And, you know, you have to like tell them, but you kind of don't want to relive it. And then I would tell them about my basement and how like my brother lost everything, and they were understanding, they were very compassionate, but it's kind of hard, you know, going to normal to going back to your basement and not seeing anything, and especially seeing your brother and like him not have anything. And like, I mean, I gave up my room for him. We went to the laundromat and we washed his clothes over and over again, and I try to help him as much as possible. And we're all contributing into buying like new water heater and trying to repair stuff, because most of it is unrepairable. Like, for example, his clothes, like he only has a few clothes and they're not winter clothes, they're summer clothes, so he has to buy a whole new wardrobe. And it's very expensive nowadays, so it's kind of hard from go to school and see people have a normal life and then go back home and then having to struggle with this whole entire mess. So.
But you didn't feel offended, because I know some students are like, oh, really, nothing really happened to them. So you that actually went through something, did you get upset that people weren't really taking it seriously, or do you feel like people at school were like, oh, like giving you support and stuff?
A couple of people were definitely giving me support, but I mean, I did kind of get annoyed when, you know, people say, oh, I didn't have electricity for a week, I'm dying here. And then like, okay, well, my house, you know, there was a giant hole in my roof because the wind knocked down the shingles, and you know, so it's completely different. I mean, I didn't take it to heart, because some people, they kind of don't get the gist unless you see it first. So, but it was definitely kind of annoying having to see how people are very superficial.
Yeah. All right. Thank you,
No
Nicole.
problem.